And the journey began from when I was very, very young. And then I'll come to the moment that was pivotal in my life. As a young girl, I knew that the voice could help transform matter. Now, of course, if you would have asked me, I wouldn't have been able to say it with these words, but I knew it. I designed this course called Storytelling as a Healing Art. And healing comes from the old German Heil, which means to make whole, to feel whole with the self.
Namaste everyone. Welcome to Yes Talks. The session today is titled Nada Yoga, a personal journey from noise to silence. Our guest speaker today is Dr. Sangeeta Laura Biagi. Let me start with giving a brief introduction for her. Yoga Thilagam Yogacharini Dr. Sangeeta Laura Biagi is a renowned educator in the field of Nada Yoga, Yoga of vibration, sound, and the voice, and the director of Gitananda Nada Yoga International at the International Center for Yoga Education and Research in Pondicherry, India. Dr. Biagi is a published author and a TEDx speaker whose research and practice on the human voice embraces both traditional forms of invocation, prayers, mantras, folk songs, and contemporary methods for self and collective expression, storytelling, choral music medicine, voice improvisation. She serves as an international visiting faculty at the Institute of Salutogenesis and Complementary Medicine at Sri Balaji Vidyapeeth in Tamil Nadu, India, and at the Istituto Lorenzo de Medici in Florence, Italy. The session today will be a conversation with Dr. Sangeeta, and the conversation will be moderated by Dr. Ramesh Bijlani. He is a prolific writer and an inspirational speaker. Once a professor at AIMS, New Delhi, Dr. Bijlani is now a spiritual seeker at Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. Welcome, Dr. Sangeeta. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are truly honored to have you with us on the Yes platform. And Dr. Bijlani, sir, thank you for moderating this conversation. Over to you both.
Thank you, Sangeeta ji. Let me add to Arunima's welcome. Welcome on my behalf and on behalf of the Yes platform for your finally finding some time to be with us in spite of your busy schedule. I know you are spreading your love very thinly over 3 continents, Asia, Europe, and America. I don't know where you are speaking from today. Internet has made the world so small that one can't make out where you are speaking from.
Namaskar, Dr. Bijlani, and thank you so much, all of the team at Yes Talks. I'm connecting with you from Siena in Tuscany, Italy. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start with the beginning of your journey of yoga. Of course, today you are in Italy. That's where you were born and brought up. But then you traveled to the US for doing a PhD, probably in performing arts. And then something happened, which the world knows about. But anyway, I'll leave it to you to share with all of us. And that became a turning point in your life. So maybe you can share a little more about how that pivotal moment in your life gave a new direction to you altogether.
Thank you, Dr. Bijlani. First of all, I would like to thank you, because it should be the other way around. I should be here asking you questions, not the other way around, because you're such an eminent educator through writing, through reaching out, and I feel truly honored that you really even thought about me because of your, depth of experience in sadhana. And of course, my heartful thanks to our Guruji and Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Bhavanani, through whom you and I met in New Delhi. So I would like to start with that and acknowledging that when speaking about Nada Yoga, I follow the teachings of Yoga Maharishi Dr. Swami Gitananda Giri and the lineage, the parampara of Rishi culture, Ashtanga Yoga. And I'm going to share from what I have learned in India from them without really making a statement that I know much, actually. I only know what I have experienced, which is everything to me, but not a lot in perspective. But thank you for asking this question, because the title that you chose, that you drafted, From Noise to Silence, is truly one of my goals in life, truly. To bring some quiet when there's noise and some resolution when there's affliction of any type. And the journey began from when I was very, very young, and then I'll come to the moment that was pivotal in my life. But when I was very, very young, as a young girl, I knew that the voice could help transform matter. Now, of course, if you would have asked me, I wouldn't have been able to say it with these words, but I knew it. And I really enjoyed observing my voice and listening to the voice of adults. And so the journey that took me to this pivotal moment that you were referring to in New York City had begun earlier than that, but I was more interested in the performing arts. And the type of performing arts I was performing, unlike, say, the classical arts of India, like Bharatanatyam, for example, was not necessarily devoted to particular devas. It wasn't religious music or spiritual music that I was singing. I was more into the world of jazz, the performing arts, performance art, so a very different style. And I was living in New York City. I had earned a scholarship to complete a master's and then a PhD in the Department of Performance Studies at the Tisch School of the Arts. And I was doing research on jazz and performance art, and a couple of things happened, but one of them that was very pivotal was 9/11. And the reason it was pivotal for me is that I was living as an immigrant, really. I was a student, but I was alone in New York City. I was studying there by myself through the scholarship. And of course, there's much to say about 9/11, but one of the things that was very important to me is what happened to the soundscape of the city. It somehow created a big shock for me, because I had the blessing of never being near a disaster, a tragedy like that before in my life. So I was very blessed for that. But when that happened, the city of New York, it's called the city that never sleeps. It really is, a famous Liza Minnelli song that says, this is the city that never sleeps. And it's true. There are over 8 million people living in New York City and about 1.5 living in Manhattan. So there's always something, there's always some sound. This is not a city that knows silence at all, ever. There's no way. But what happened during 9/11 and right after, the months after, was a complete change of the soundscape of the city, with a lot of alarms, of course, firefighter trucks, ambulances, people crying, people yelling. I mean, there was just a lot of despair in the soundscape that left me completely incapable of reacting, not even acting, even at just the animal level. The Abhinivesha Klesha of Patanjali was really, really strong, and it paralyzed me. I wasn't really able to move much for quite some time. And then something happened. I hadn't met yoga yet. I hadn't really reconnected with the yoga darshan yet, and I was 36 years old. But I had the capacity to listen that came from my training. So instead of fighting the sounds and the fear that, was really creeping up, I relaxed and listened, and I was able to hear. And yet to this day, I'm not really sure whether it was an intuition or it was a fantasy or it came out of the shock. I'm not sure. But I started to hear a hum, a really, really deep hum. And at first I thought it was maybe something in the ground, or, some that came maybe from, the rescuers. But it wasn't that. It was like a deeper hum. And when I connected to the hum that I could hear inside, I disconnected from the noise on the outside, and I could finally rest. It was really a very powerful experience. And now, after many, many years, more than 20 years, when I connect to certain sounds, certain nods, well, let's say some shabda, the sound, the expressed sound that I can hear when we invoke the pranava, for example, I can recognize that similar sound that is always within us and that is truly vibrating at a very, very high vibration that can help us heal many, many troubles in our psyche. And so it was very interesting that that's how it started for me. After that, after hearing that, I became more and more interested in that. What is that sound? How does sound can help us regain a sense of harmony where there's chaos and noise? And so I started with vibrational therapy, music therapy, sound healing, music medicine in New York still. And then for a series of, let's call them coincidences, but of course we know it's more than that, I was directed to the Temple of Chidambaram, first online from New York, and then eventually the Ananda Ashram, the Gitananda Parampara, and the teachings of Sanatana Dharma.
Sangeeta, as you said, the journey actually didn't start with New York, probably started earlier. You were born with that sensitivity to sound and that sort of a consciousness which was hidden somewhere. And in terms of Vedanta, you brought it with you from your previous lives, all the homework that had gone into your sadhana in the previous lives. So you just needed a trigger to turn consciously to the path of yoga, and that trigger became 9/11 in New York. And after that, then of course, that unseen hand of the divine took you to a temple, from there to the ashram in Pondicherry, Swami Gitananda's ashram. And
Yes.
then, of course, after that, there has been no looking back.
Yes.
So after undergoing this major transformation through your visit to India and staying there for a long time, you then once again went to the US, and seems that you spent quite a lot of time working in the prisons there. I saw that beautiful little film, The Girl Inside, that short 10-minute, but it's an interesting video showing, how you made the inmates there talk about their own stories from their own childhood, and how that helped them heal. So maybe you would like to say something on that.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I knew when I was, living at the ashram. We at the time, Puduvai Kalaimamani Minakshi Devi Bhavanani, the mother of Dr. Ananda, and the Dharma Patni of Swami Gitananda, she used to tell us, when you leave the ashram and you go back home, whatever that is for you, wherever that is for you, do your best to integrate what you have learned. Don't expect people to change with you, understand you, or even truly get it, how you say, because they didn't have the experience you had. So I knew, however, that I wanted to bring the blessings that the teachings of yoga really shower on us, the understanding that we are responsible for our own choices, that it's important that we develop viveka, the yamas and the niyamas. So many teachings are there that give you your life back in your hands. But the process is not very easy, because you first need to become aware that you are unaware of your animal tendencies, that we all have them, that we rise 100 times and we fall 101 times, and then we keep going and we keep going. And the path of yoga is not a path of perfection, in the sense that there could be, there is perfection in yoga as a state of unity and being, but the path to get there, to get inside, is full of reflections of how imperfect we are as humans. But that shouldn't discourage us. It should make us more humble. Of course, the ego is going to put up a fight with that idea and be very arrogant. And so then we become aware of that, and then we keep going, and then we fall again, and then we keep going. And I knew that that was going to be really important for me in my work in academia, because there's not a lot of conversation unless we are in the field of religion or in the academic field of yoga altogether. Otherwise, the yamas and the niyamas are not really talked about in academia. They should be. They should be there as soon as we embark on an academic journey, actually, but they're not always there. But I knew that I wanted to bring these teachings into what I was doing. And at the time, after leaving India and after staying in Italy for a little bit, I got an invitation to teach at a conservatory in Chicago at DePaul University, the theater school. And because of a series of connections that I had in New York, I was invited once to teach one class on the power that breath awareness, we would call it pranayama, of course, but that class was how breath awareness can be used as a tool for emotional intelligence and emotional awareness, which of course it's very, very important for inmates, because of course the environment of a jail or of a prison is filled with triggers, left, right, and up and down all the time. But moreover, when someone is in court discussing their case, the capacity to be able to breathe, keep your mind, focused, and not get triggered is very, very important. So I was thinking, what could I share, because yes, breathing, okay, but what could I share that is useful to this population? And I thought, yes, we could perhaps look at the breath, the voice, and then how to pronounce words, how to communicate, how to use the breath in communication, how to listen. So out of that experience came the desire to create a course. And when I accepted the position at the theater school, one of the prerequisites was that I could teach in the local jail. Chicago has a very, very big jail. It's 96 acres, so it's like 5 full city blocks. It's massive, and so I was able to do it. I trained with the Inside Out Prison Exchange program, and I think training is extremely important in these situations, because you need to know what not to do before you even know what to do inside a jail as a faculty member. And so I designed this course called Storytelling as a Healing Art. And healing comes from the old German Heil, which means to make whole, to feel whole with the self. So from healing, from that root come hospital, hospitability, wholesome also. All these words come from that, and through different roots. And that's where I just opened myself up to listening to the stories of the inmates. Now, the inmates could not discuss their cases, which was good. I think that that's really important, that there's no need to discuss one's case or one's story, especially if it's filled with trauma. The educator does not need to be a voyeur, and doesn't need to go and pick, the person's hurt and tell me, that's not the point at all of a workshop or a course like that. What's more important is that the person is able to express themselves in whichever way they want, not in the way that the faculty wants. Of course, we did have specific academic assignments and readings and midterm paper. We had a structure, but the way that I went about it is to start looking at the happiest memory of each of the participants. And some of them couldn't remember any, and then some of them could remember many. And I realized that oftentimes when we ask someone, what is your favorite, happiest memory of your childhood? If they don't remember, it's because trauma is there, of course. But if we stay with them for a moment and we give them some prompts, like, did you play alone? Did you play with family members? Did you have a pet? Did you like to eat? Did you like nature? Somehow we get there. And why that is important to me is that in my experience over a few years now, the memory that the person picks, actually we should say that the memory picks them, right, to be remembered. But anyways, the memory has something really special that the person still likes to do today. It's very interesting. It's like you may not feel that they're connected at all, but in fact they are. Whether they're playing alone or with other people. Most likely the person still likes to do things alone or with other people. Were you in nature? Were you inside? And anyway, you get the point. So we started with that, and that freed up a lot of laughter, because a happy memory brings up a happy memory. So we started with a lot of laughter, and I think I'll take a pause here now, but I think that that's one of the qualities of the parampara of Swami Gitananda, and therefore Nada Yoga for me, is that there's a level of mirth and there's a level of laughter and joy that was in Swami Gitananda and Meenakshi Devi Bhavanani and now Dr. Ananda Ji. There's always this kind of laughter and smile and happiness. And I think that that was really very inspiring to me when associated with spiritual study, swadhyaya, or the sadhana in general, that there needs to be a compensation between the intensity and also the sense of being one with all that is, but one for sure, just a sense of self. And sometimes that can get a little gloomy or very serious. But with the parampara of Swami Gitananda, there's no worry about that. And we're all laughing a lot. And I think that that's what I like about the work of storytelling, is that we should be able to have fun with it, even when we're dealing with matters that are difficult. I can go on and on, but I don't want to talk too much also.
So if I get it correctly, a person who has suffered a lot in childhood, whose childhood has been full of, say, physical or sometimes sexual abuse, the memories that dominate this person are the painful memories. But then what helps in healing is to bring out some stories which have been the happier part of this person's life, and everybody can recollect at least some such story during which the person was happy. So if we encourage the person to come up with those stories, they are the most conducive to healing. Is that so?
Yes, Dr. Ramesh. Actually, there are many layers, and it depends on the person always who has experienced the trauma, and it depends on the gravity of the trauma and the length, the repetition. I mean, every person is different. And I am a storyteller, I'm an artist, I'm an educator, an author. So I can only get to a specific point of supporting the person's journey to healing themselves. Of course, in the jail, there are other professionals who come in, psychologists, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and childhood trauma informed specialists. I don't think that necessarily a storyteller is going to be able to support the person at the beginning of their journey of going back to retrieving those memories. So I would say I would have a word of caution about that, in the sense that the students who came, who voluntarily took the class inside the jail, were all people who had previously delved deep into a journey of self-recovery and self-healing. And they had the tools to be part of the class for that reason. They were not people who were just traumatized, or who had never really thought about their childhood and then all of a sudden they came to me. They were chosen. The program was sponsored and publicized among the population of the jail that was able to sustain a level of self-inquiry and journaling and performing. So in that sense, I think there are stages where the person is not going to be able to talk at all, and then they're going to be having very strong reactions to the memory, and they should have the appropriate therapist there with them. However, at a certain point, I think what I really liked about this program is that it didn't focus on the case. It didn't focus on telling the story of the problem, but it focused on highlighting the potential of the person, the strength of the person, their happiest memories, their wildest dreams. And there is a process, there's a process called reframing in psychology and coaching that does that, but I don't like to use that so much, because sometimes it's a bit superficial. Sometimes it's like, replace the bad memory with the good memory. So we weren't doing that, but we were focusing on the strength of the participants. So the healing narratives, I chose this title myself because when we think of healing as becoming whole, we can think about this teaching of yoga, of the koshas, of the different bodies. And Swami Gitananda Giri has really, really wonderful reflections, contemplations, and teachings in our parampara, because he speaks about a psychic disassociation called nara. And when we experience psychic disassociation, we experience it because of a variety of reasons. It could be trauma, for most people, it's trauma, but it could also be fatigue, or a very challenging experience like we had during COVID, or disease, a specific disease that was debilitating. In any event, there are many reasons why we disassociate. But when we disassociate, there are certain elements of the sadhana that are useful. For example, focusing the mind on a powerful mantra like the Om. Focusing the mind to begin to feel a point of concentration. Because one of the effects of disassociation is that the mind is either dull, completely dull, and doesn't feel much, including the disassociation, or it's very scattered. And so at a certain level, everyone is experiencing nada nowadays. Everybody's experiencing nada. But what I decided to do in the storytelling is that, because I wasn't necessarily the person who is going to be listening to their difficult experiences, and as I said, focusing on the positive experiences, I translated the sound, the cerebral nasal sounds that are present in all the mantras. I translated them into a secular expression, which is humming. Everybody's now talking about humming and the power of humming. Of course, it comes from prayer and the mantras, because all of them have this sound. But this humming became a warm-up for us to clear all of the distractions of their mind and focus them on the capacity that sound has to work on the neuropsychic and also neurophysiologic cold bodies. Because after 5 minutes or so of humming, and we did it in a variety of exercises, cortisol production is reduced. And often when there's grace, because grace plays an important part also, in some grace, moments of grace, we also have the production of serotonin, oxytocin, and other things like that. So without having to talk about, okay, now, what are the effects of oxytocin? That people feel they want to be with each other more, like it's a bonding neurotransmitter. And in the bonding, we didn't need to do it. We did it with the sound. We did it by holding these humming sounds together in a circle. Now, after that was done, which brought the person back together, in themselves, then that's where we gave the prompts, where I gave them the prompts. What is your memory, first memory, and so on. So to finish this answer, yes, focusing on the strength of the person, on the positive aspects, on their capacity to do good, to be good, to be an asset to society, the person remembers that is true. Because one thing that trauma will do is that will make you forget all of the good aspects of your personality and just make you feel broken, unclean, undeserving. It's very, very tricky. So just to be able to alleviate a little bit of those symptoms, the symptoms of nada, to be able to alleviate them through physical movements, which we call jatis in our parampara, the letting go of the sounds of whoosh and chu and all of these, and shaking the body. And then I also added some things that we do, but I took them from theater, which are some ways of using the voice that is very dramatic, very expressive. So people could do sounds or make movements that inside the jail are not absolutely possible, like yelling, screaming, throwing objects like paper. We didn't have, of course, objects in the room, but, putting some paper together and throwing at each other and things like that. So in that way, if the person is able to go back to feeling childlike without fear, they may be able to remember their true nature before the trauma occurred. And that is the seed of healing, one of the seeds for sure.
Thank you. I think you have put it exceedingly well and explained everything so beautifully, being not only an expert in the knowledge, but also in the practice, and having so much experience, having healed so many. So that was coming through the way you spoke. So you said, there are many layers to it. To start with, if I sort of understood correctly, is expressive sort of a therapy. Better than journaling if you have somebody face to face with you, and then from there, using sort of a combination of tools to take the person towards more of silence and peace, and that probably helps in bringing back some memories which the person is happy to remember. And so all this put together, the silence, the tools for generating peace like the mantras, and the sweet memories that the person wants to relive, and see how that can be brought back into life. All this helps the person. Is that, I've seen it?
Yes. As I said, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you see in the film, but I can also tell you now that once we sat and made sure that we were providing, I say we because I don't feel like it was just me, even though I was the teacher, but I feel like there was more than just me. It was teamwork, really. But once the participants were able to relax in the expression, in their self-expression, because we think, oh, I'm going to express myself, but probably even here in this, meeting, and thank you all so much for being here, really, all of you. But, maybe we express ourselves freely, but maybe not, right? Maybe we're still shy, and maybe we don't really want, or culturally we don't do it, or we do it too much, like in Italy, like always, rah, rah, rah. But self-expression through vocal utterance is one of the most vulnerable things that human beings can do. It is one of our highest achievements as a species, where we developed languages, written, well, oral, of course, first, and then written. Now coding. Really, this is kind of our specialty somehow, right? That we're able to communicate so well that we have incredible cultures. So culture is based on storytelling, and so, however, the person telling the story needs to feel at ease. Otherwise, the story will not come out. And it's true, or it will come out veiled or, hidden. But a lot of the women inside, but a lot of humans, I think, inside don't speak their truth necessarily. It's difficult. It's not easy. So, and silence, the silence that we spoke about in the title is very different than the silence that many inmates experience, or just people who are traumatized, who are experiencing injustice or discrimination of any type, aggressions of any type, microaggressions of any type. People will go into silence a lot, because it's dangerous to speak up. So the silence of the jail is very different than the silence of Nad, right? So there are many different silences, like there are many different voices. So to be able to sit with that silence of no words, but because of violence, not because of sadhana. That was a very powerful experience for me. And many women felt like they didn't have a voice. This is very common. When people experience trauma sometimes, they say that they don't have a voice. They don't have the words. They don't know how to say it. They don't want to say it. So to sit with that and to go with sounds like the humming allowed them in a choir, because we hum together a lot. And the reason why I didn't bring the pranava om or other Sanskrit words is a topic that we can talk about a little bit later. But there's this requirement of secularism that the jail imposed on us. Unless we were teaching religious studies courses, it was not advised. But that's a different conversation anyway. It's a politics of the jail. But to be able to allow them to understand that this vibration that they could produce with their voice is a bridge to their heart, a bridge to something greater, was an introduction. Now, some of them are out. They left the jail. So now I can speak with them freely about the teachings of the parampara. But even then, to simplify or to translate in the language that people can understand, I think is a task of a teacher anyway, of an educator more than a teacher. And so, yes, what you said is right. We were there, we sat there, we sat in the uncomfortable silence without forcing it. There's nothing worse than forcing the silence of someone who doesn't want to speak. So we just sat there and hummed for several lessons. And then we had theater games. The theater games are always fun. Anyways, when you think about theater games, I don't know if anyone here is in the field of theater, improv, theater like that. Not so much necessarily traditional theater, but more like, improv, storytelling, improv. Everybody's like a kid in a theater class. Totally like a kid, laughing around, jumping around, and improvising, sketching, laughing. So as I said at the beginning, this was, the silence, the uncomfortability, testing the trust that each person had with me and each other, testing, how much can I go before I break? Oh, it's like, look, I'm not breaking, I can go a little further. Oh, I can actually string 3 words together. I am this, oh my God, I actually have a paragraph. We got to about a paragraph around 8 weeks into the course, not before. So, step by step, gently.
I can see you put into practice exceedingly well the advice that you got from Ammaji to not try to change people, try and work along the grain rather than across the grain, so I put it, and integrate the traditional knowledge that you got with what the people are willing to accept, and the type of presentation to which they'll be receptive. And one of the key things in the mantras is humming, and that is what you have been emphasizing. And if you look at it, actually, seems to be a very ancient discovery, that humming of the sounds which end in a ma or a na, which creates resonance in the upper part of the body, particularly the head, that has an extremely soothing effect. And I mean, total silence within would be more difficult to tolerate, because nature does not like a vacuum. To fill it with this soothing sound is much more peaceful, and that's what all the ancient traditions seem to have discovered. In the Hindu tradition, we have Om ending in a Ma, and in other traditions, we have Shalom and Amen and Amin and so on. They all end either in a Ma or a Na. And if you want to give it a secular touch, then you just make them chant the Ma or a Na itself without the rest of it.
Yes. Of course, the tradition was acknowledged in the syllabus, so there wasn't a level of appropriation of, using the teachings of the parampara and just using them in the jail. The attitude wasn't that. The participants had in the syllabus all of the information of where some of the practices came from, what they were, etc. But in the act of translating them, I found it was more effective than speaking about yoga and not being understood of what that meant. And also, this wasn't a yoga course, it was a theater course, so that's also there. But I think, what you said about the sweet sounds and all of that is that it really, you use this adjective sweet. And I think sweetness is something that we all need very much as humans, as mammals. Now, the way that we express it is obviously very different. We don't really have to all go out and hug each other and kiss each other. No, not that type. But the kindness, the sweetness, which is also how we listen. Because we don't listen sweetly. It's very difficult to listen sweetly. I mean, to talk sweetly, sure, we can like da 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 da, and then we say, "What do you think?" And then the other person tells you something, and your ears are like, "No, I don't want to listen to this." So to be able to sweeten the capacity to listen is really lovely. And just wanted to thank you for bringing up that adjective, sweet, because I think that's it. There's so much. I mean, not just inside Cook County Jail, but just all around. We could really change society if we all just focused on that, I think. Just listening intelligently, There are places where we can't be sweet. We have to block out or just leave. I get it, but generally speaking, just relax into listening. Relaxing into listening. That's really... And so when the women finished the course in that particular film, all of them said, I have reconnected with my voice. And that was it for me. That was the greatest satisfaction for me. And some of them, well, actually, many of them leaving the jail have started on a journey of education, like they are educators and listening to other people who are in the same context that they were, educating, working for non-profits, and they all went out and became spoke people. So I was really happy to see that. And the reason why I bring this up is because of this beautiful teaching of the voice as a Shakti that Sanatana Dharma has gifted me, truly enlightening my path, not enlightening me, but enlightening my path, of the voice as not being a tool that is just ours, like the body itself, that the voice, anyhow, all of these words, voice, vocal, vocation, invoking, evoking, they all come from the Sanskrit vak or vach. And that is divine, a divine manifestation, a divine Shakti that through the incarnation of the vocal cords that are called after vak, the vocal cords. So those are the instruments of this divine prana, divine Shakti, divine energy, however we want to translate vak or vach, and that we have such a gift in all of us, to be able to communicate, connecting with something greater. And that is something that I touch with them only a little bit, not much. There wasn't enough time, or the context wasn't exactly right, even though many of the participants in Chicago jail were Christian, so they did understand what I meant, but I wasn't really going there much. But in Nada Yoga, this is what we really try to highlight and treasure, that the voice is not just my voice. It's an actual incarnation. It becomes flesh by vibrating in our body, which is flesh. And so that's a big responsibility. So, I really appreciate that of Sanatana Dharma and Buddhism also. In Buddhism, in the Eightfold Path, there's the right word. So when it comes to the voice, we do have, all of us, really a great opportunity and a responsibility to navigate the different contexts in which we use our voice in different ways. So I'm happy that they understood in the jail and that they are now able to help other people with that teaching. I feel grateful that I was able to transmit that to them from the Parampara.
Well, now we are nearing the end of today's session. So let me ask you a difficult question. You're engaged in many activities. Of course, there's a certain focus in it and a certain central theme. The predominant thing is that you are basically showering your love on the people who are around you and giving what you can give best.
Thank you.
But out of all your activities, what is it that you find most interesting or most rewarding or most joyful?
Well, being with you here gives me great joy. Really, I really feel so blessed, and thank you all for listening. It really means a lot. So yes, learning makes me so happy. There is a little bit of an issue because the more I learn, the more I forget. I don't know if it's because of age or because of what it is. I don't know exactly, but I'm forgetting a lot. So there's always something more that I need to learn, and then something I hadn't noticed, or something I've studied for 10 years, and all of a sudden I realize I didn't understand it. It's really interesting. So that makes me happy. I think a life without learning would be truly a sort of hell for me. I really, the freedom to learn, not just learning, but the freedom to choose what you want to learn and how you want to learn it. And I feel this is one of my greatest privileges, and I do my best to preserve it as much as I can. And because of that, I really enjoy teaching or educating others, and educating as in the actual Latin sense of educare, which means to bring forth something that the person already knew. Amaji would say, remember to remember. Basically, different perspectives, but that's the thing. And what I enjoy the most are the moments of inspiration. Literally, physically, wow, that inspiration, and then also psychically, just to see in myself and other people when those moments come and the light comes in their eyes, and life has meaning in that moment, and it's that those moments are so special. So I experience them with the parampara. That's why I'm, happy to continue to share, because I feel that there are many moments as a student where that happens with all of the family and all of that. The other thing that I enjoy is walking. I love walking. And so I enjoy my work as a tour guide as well, because when I can put together walking and a little bit of cardio, because where I live in Siena, there are a lot of hills up and down, so it's not an easy walk. But when we walk and I put together the happiness, I can see the oxygenated blood in everybody's cheeks. And then you put that together with the inspiration, then it's like, it's the best. So then it's also physical, So yeah, I love these. I love swimming, and I think what you said, Dr. Bishlani, is correct. I was thinking about ambition a few days ago, and I said, do I have any ambition about anything? But I think I do. I do have an ambition of becoming the best version of myself, as Dr. Nandaji would say. Definitely that's an ambition. And the other one is that, it's a very high ambition, but the other one is wherever I am, may there be serenity inside of me and around me. That's big, big ambition. It's now I'm good at it about 30%. So there's a little bit of a way to go, but I'm not giving up. It's okay. Now 30, sometimes 35, and that's it. But yeah.
Would you like to give some generalizable message which can help people in general live a happier, healthier, and more meaningful life?
Thank you. I will ask you the same question after I finish mine, so I'll keep mine short. I want to know from you. Oh, wow. If we unmute everyone and everyone says a word, I think we would have the complete sentence, because we have very wise people in the Sangha here. But I would feel that, just relax. I think just start with relaxation. That's what has worked for me. That's what is working for me before anything else. First of all, of course, if people feel alone, they feel aloof, they don't know their way, then find, a group of people, find a Sangha that is healthy, where the teachings of the Sangha make you feel good on all levels, and above all, independent, to think and to choose. That is, I think, hugely important. So find a Sangha, find a group where you feel free to choose, free to learn, free to ask any question. You should be able to ask any question to your teachers, and if you're lucky, to your guru. But so that's the first thing, is like, find other people on the path. First of all, if you're feeling alone, make an effort, do some diligent research. And when you find a group of people that are healthy together, happy together, then see what's working for them. I'd say that's the first part. And then if you find the parampara that is right for you for this incarnation, then also follow that. The other thing is that, let's say that you are already doing that, and but you have issues, that life is not easy. It will test you in many, many ways, and learn to relax. That's the next step. So you're not alone all of a sudden. You have a resource group around you that you trust. Then the next step is learn to relax. Learn what relaxation means, learn the anatomy, the physiology, the nervous system, how the brain works, the triggers, the amygdala, learn how you work. And you don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it all in one lifetime. Don't rush. Don't stress over relaxation, in other words, otherwise you're defeating the purpose. And just learn to relax. What works for me? What doesn't work for me? Does music work for me? Does this? Okay. Then learn the relationship between diet and relaxation. What are you eating or drinking? If you're drinking a lot of caffeine, tea, if you have too much sugar in your blood, it's going to be more difficult to relax. So, lifestyle adjustments. So there's this trickling effect. But the first step is, what do I need to relax? For me, always, always, always. What do I need at this moment to relax so that I can be efficient, I can remain calm, I can be kind and not react. I don't need to react. It's not necessary to react. But if we're not relaxed, we are definitely going to react. Definitely. So I think that's it. Try to relax. And by relaxation, I mean active yoga relaxation, not crashing on the couch. I just pointed over there because there's a couch over there, and it's always calling me for some reason. It's just talking of voices. But yeah, like if you need to rest, take a rest. But then, learn to relax in an active yogic way where you can let go of the stressors and go on with your day being the best person you can be. That's, I think, enough for me.
Those are indeed very practical, pragmatic ideas which we can all use with great profit. And that has been the sort of ultimate wisdom passed on to the people by the spiritual masters. Sri Aurobindo, the mother, also emphasized tranquility a lot, what you call relaxation. And that is the foundation of yoga. In a way, one can say that that tranquility, that peace is essential for yoga, and it's also the product of yoga. As the practice deepens, one will be more at peace, and then the importance of a community, because we are all interrelated. We are not an island unto ourselves. It's the community that helps us grow, and the community should be conducive to further progress, where we can strike those, what Gary Zukav called spiritual partnerships, so
Yes.
that you go beyond friendship and are stimulating one another's spiritual growth. So that sort of a Sangha is very important. And then the lifestyle advice.
What would you be, Dr. Bishlani? I want to make sure that we don't run out of time because you're very precise with the timing. What would be your message to this Sangha and the ones who will see the recording?
Well, I mean, making it different from what you said, although what you said is, as I said, the ultimate wisdom of the masters. Deviating from a little, forget yourself, in the sense that instead of being exclusively concerned with oneself, one looks around and tries to find what one can give. And of course, one can give only what one has and only to those who need it. And if one can find that complementary situation and gets busy with giving what one has to those who need it as an expression of our love, without expecting anything in return, we'll get immense joy, the peace that is the product of yoga, a sense of fulfillment, and the spiritual progress will take care of itself.
Thank you.
I think we pass it on to Arunima for giving the listeners a chance. If you have the time, we have the time. We are not very uptight about time. So if you have the time, we can still have some questions and answers.
Yes, of course. For you too. Yes, I do have some time for sure. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sangeeta, for this enlightening session, for the inspiring sharings from your personal and professional journey. We're truly grateful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And as Dr. Bijnani suggested, we can open the session to the participants. Participants, if you have any questions or anything to share, you can raise the hand and I'll call out your name and you can unmute yourself and speak up, or you can send your messages in the chat.
Can I speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. I missed the very beginning. At one point, you spoke of the difference in New York of the external sound that turned into a particular humming. Then you spoke of humming in a circle in the jail. Can you differentiate those two hums? Or are they similar? I had a very strong experience just recently with my niece. We swam from our boat to land, and she's 7 years old, so swimming is important. So we landed on this little island, and she started humming. She was very relaxed. This is how I interpreted her humming. And that made me so happy because we could hear was the sound of very calm sea splashing on the rocks. So she was happy with her humming. And I found this humming experience that you were communicated very, very powerful. Also, I found it particular that you're not speaking of Om with a secular imposition, such as a jail environment, but the effect of hum is very similar to Om chanting. Do you agree?
What a wonderful question made of 3 different questions. Thank you so much. The humming is, the humming that I perceived, that I felt in New York, and the humming that now we share, the humming of your niece, I think also is one humming. Our Earth is humming. The planet Earth is humming. Excuse me, just 1 second. So humans, as animals, as mammals, have hummed for a very, very long time. The sound of humming is really a very comforting sound for us. Excuse me. For some reason, this answer wants to stay quiet, but we're not giving up. So there's something really special for our nervous system, not just to hum, but to move with the hum. Was your niece moving slightly with the hum? That's a question, Barbara. Was your niece moving with the hum when she was humming?
Not really. No, she was lying down with her knees bent on these sassi lisci. These were...
she was lying down, so that's a little bit different.
She was lying down because we swam, so it was comfortable for her to relax.
Yeah,
but no,
so
she wasn't moving. I understand the moving part also.
yeah. In general, I don't know what I heard. I'm not sure what I heard in New York. As I said, I don't know if it was an intuition or an imagination, or I just felt it from the bones. I didn't hear it. That's why I listened to it in a different way. And there's something extremely powerful in singing the bones. In some cultures, in some indigenous cultures, the bones are used to create flutes for shamans and medicine men and medicine women. Because even in the cremation ground, some of the bones don't burn. So they're considered to be the repository sometimes of a special power that bridges beyond the realms, the different lokas and all of that. So the bones vibrate with our voice very, very strongly. We can hear our own voice through the ear canal, because I'm speaking and therefore I hear it, but I can also hear it through bone conduction. That's why when people record their voices, often they don't like it, or they're surprised. It's like, oh my God, do I sound like this? It's because when we speak, our voice sounds more soothing, deeper, and more relaxing. When we hear it, all of the bone sensations are gone, and it definitely sometimes it sounds more nasal or this and this and this. So humming, when we hum, the vibration of the voice, especially with the with this nasal cerebral retroflex sound, the sound rises up in the pyramid of the nose, vibrates the skull, which of course has a lot of bone, and through there goes down the spine and into all of the bones. The larger and flatter the bones, the stronger the vibration. That's why we hear the sound here, because of all of the ribs. But basically, each tiny little bone in the knee, in the foot, in the ankle, all of them vibrate when we hum, whether we feel them or not. And so it's one of the most soothing sounds. It's one of the first sounds that an infant can make. Also, this is a form of humming, no? It's just this sound. So I think, yes, I think any sort of, the joy of being alive, which we call in Italian, because you're Italian, thank you for joining from Italy, the godimento, which has different meanings, of course, but the godimento della vita, the joy of life, the enjoyment of life, goes through humming for sure.
Thank you.
And I think that that's what picked me up in New York. It picked me up from the floor and it brought me up. And I think it was the teachings of the Parampara coming through for me. I really do. I don't speak like that often, but because you asked, I'm gonna say yes. I think it is what picked me up from there, from that floor, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Participants, anyone else would like to ask or share something? Please go ahead.
So because nobody's asking, I'm going to say one more thing before we finish. If you're working with your own voice or with someone else's voice and they're not able to have a sound coming out of their voice, teach them how to breathe first. Because the voice is the breath. And the breath is prana. We were speaking about it with Dr. Ananda a few days ago. So oftentimes we say in Italian, canta che ti passa, which means sing and all of the troubles will go away. Canta che ti passa. So canta to sing comes from the Sanskrit, canta, of course. And but many people want to use their voice or want to speak up or want to be heard or want to do this, want. But the first step is the breath. Because the voice is a manifestation of the prana that manifests through the breath. it's not separate. So it cannot be separate. You cannot have a breath over here, the energy or prana over there, and then your voice over here. People come and it's like, I want to work on my voice, but oh no, I don't want to think about this. It's like, well, there's no possibility for you then, you know. So let's learn and remember how to breathe. Then through breathing, we can, at different levels of sadhana, of course, and different language and words that we use to express specific aspects of the sadhana. But let's say, simply put, take deep, long breaths and relax. Then you'll feel the body stress up again. Take a deep breath and relax. Regulate the breath and relax. Regulate the breath and relax. Then, when you feel that you are at ease, then come with this surging of sound through humming, which is still not yet the spoken alphabet. The alphabet will define you right away because it's culturally specific. So before even you start with saying a word, just feel the breath becoming sound through humming. That's also used in therapy when people have difficulties with their vocal cords and things like that. We go to humming. The first thing we do. After that, you can start to open your mouth and articulate the vowels and the consonants and just feel how they feel. And then, you know, you can compose a poem or the first sentence of your autobiography or in our case, you know, of your story as a storytellers. But we rush a lot, unfortunately. That's the thing. And that's what humming helps us to do also, to slow down. Because we rush a lot. And the voice cannot be rushed because it's divine. So.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a question in the chat box. So I'll read it out. Yogacharya Bharat Bill Francis Barry, sir. He says, Dr. Sangeeta ji, in the wide range of the vocalization practices that you teach, do you have a favorite category of teaching or a personal yoga practice of chanting?
Bharataji. Yes, I do for sure. I think the teaching of the Soham mantra in the Parapara of Swami Gitananda Giri and the teaching of Shabda Pratyahara are my two favorite ones. Of course, as you know well, Bharataji, the Sukha Pranayama, the Savitri Pranayamas, I mean, there's so much that supports the yamas and niyamas, you know, that supports those two practices. They're not just, you know, by themselves like that. But the Soham mantra, or the inhalation, simple inhalation and exhalation, and quieting the self enough to be able to hear the japa of the ajapa mantra, or the sound of the breath coming in and coming out, and understanding the relationship between the physical and the metaphysical meanings of that is incredible for me. On top of that, when we breathe with our vocal cords relaxed, we don't make any sound, you know, because sometimes a Soham mantra, then people start, you know, okay, I'm going to listen to the sound of the breath, so I'm just going to go like this, you know, I'm exaggerating, of course. But in the parampara, we're not engaging the vocal cords. And as a teacher, or like a voice educator, I should say, as a voice educator, I tell people, relax your vocal cords. For two main reasons. One of them is that if you're able, let's try now, open your mouth and breathe in and out without making any sound, through the mouth. Can you feel a little freshness? There's a spot that feels a little fresh when the air passes through. Can you feel it? That's the area of your vocal cords. Those are the vocal cords that are like in the Ananda Maya Kosha, because you're giving them a break. Just relax your vocal cords. So Now you can also do it through the nostrils, of course, but the first step is to allow, also tell people you know to feel where they are and make sure that they relax them every once in a while, because we're all very tight here all the time. Then the second step of that is that if people have been having any sort of trauma, whether they have actual trauma on the cords, like polyps or other things on the cords, or any other trauma anywhere else, the first place where we lock up is here, physically, here, and then here, and then here. So this exercise, breathing in and out with the vocal cords open, even through the nostrils, is really, really important. And lastly, in the Sukha, in the Savitri pranayamas, or all the pranayamas that require a suspension of the breath, or a holding in, holding out, a sort of kumbhaka, the vocal cords are relaxed. Okay, this is something it's very important, because sometimes when we hold the breath not from the diaphragm, but from the vocal cords. So, for example, what I mean by that is that you inhale, right? And then you lock here, holding the breath, especially if you're a beginner. If you're more advanced in the sadhana, you don't do this. But at the beginning, people will go into an apnea that comes from engrossing the vocal cords and pushing them together. So all of a sudden, we should be relaxed in the space of the kumbhaka, and instead you see people have a lot of tension. So teach everyone how to relax the vocal cords, especially in the kumbhaka, if you're teaching them some breath retention. Because it's from the diaphragm. Right? The breath is from the diaphragm, it's from the Nabhi chakra, it's not from the throat. So we don't need to do anything here. Now this will give you the capacity not to hold, but in fact to open, enthusiasm, but to open everything else up instead. Otherwise, the energy will be quite tight here and it will be difficult. So these are practices. Thank you for asking, Bharatani.
Ma'am, there's just another question. See if you can answer it. If I could follow a simple everyday practice using my voice to get more connected to the silence within, what could that be? Would love to know that for self-practice. Vani Radha Krishnan asked this.
Thank you so much for asking this question. Of course, any sort of prayer, if you already have a prayer, if you already have a mantra that was gifted to you, that you resonate with, of course, that's incredible. That's a blessing. That's it, right? But if you are speaking from the point of view of just getting in touch with the raw voice, not so much already putting it into a mantric form, then remember that the voice is an incarnation of an energy through your physical body. Your instrument is the body, right? So for the first step is stretch the body. So now if you wanted to, depending on how much time you have, let's say you don't have a lot of time, then first of all, make sure that the areas of the shoulders, of the neck, there are many movements that you can do with even before you get in touch with the voice, get in touch with the instrument, like a musician, a mridangam player or a veena player will, tune the veena, and right, it isn't going to come on stage and start, So you're going to get there, caress it, clean it, make sure it's tuned. The same thing is true with our voice. Even if your movement is very limited, even just if you can just do tiny, tiny movements, those are enough. Going back and forth, just becoming aware of what is here. Then yawn a lot. Yawning is really good because it stretches all of the membranes that are in the vocal cavity, the soft palate, all the way to the hard palate, the tongue, the lips. Open up. Create space in the instrument. Create space because the voice is going to make that space resonate. That's where it resonates. So stretch up, open up. And then after that, if you're at the beginning, I think humming, as we said, is really, really helpful. Humming doesn't require you to make any facial expression, so you don't need to go like things like this. In fact, the less amount of stress, the better. So just take a deep breath, and again. What you're doing here, you're bringing the vocal cords together, and they're like waves. They move in. A laryngoscopy would be very interesting for you to see, like a camera over the vocal cord. It's really incredible. If you slow down the movement, it looks like waves. Again, the waves. Just like the sound waves on a screen. That's what the vocal cords do with each other. And so they need to learn to move together, which sometimes people cannot do. They have a paralysis of one of the two cords, and they cannot do a pure, not perfect, but pure sound, like it's a very difficult sound to make. At first it will be like because the vocal cords are like, I don't know what she's doing, I'm not sure, we've just been speaking so far, I don't know. So they're a little like then slowly, step by step, they start. Then you feel you're stressed out, and then you relax, and then you start again. And then and it's a layer after layer. The voice is already there. It's like Michelangelo's David. Your voice, your perfect divine voice, is already new, and you just have to kind of strip the layers, or go clean up as best as you can where there was a trauma, and that's it. You just chisel out the unnecessary layers of stress that you've put on it. That's it, but it's already there.
Thank you so much, Sangeeta ma'am. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so before we close today's session, I would like to inform that the recording of today's beautiful session and all the Yes Talks that are held every Saturday at 8 p.m. IST are published on our YouTube channel, Yes Spirituality. This is how it is spelled. You can visit the YouTube channel and explore extensive content on yoga, education, spirituality, and related subjects like psychology and wellness. Please do explore the channel.
Thank you so much for inviting me, and both of you really very, very much, and you, Dr. Bishlani, also for your your generosity, and for hosting us, holding space, and making sure the good is shared, and helping us get together, being together for a little bit of time, help each other. It's very important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Sangeeta ma'am. Heartfelt thanks. And thank you, participants, for being with us today. We'll close today's session now with a moment of peaceful silence. Thanks.